Defense wins championships. It might be a cliche, but it's often proven true. Often, not always. NFL teams looking to win a Super Bowl will hope to be strong on both sides of the ball, but sometimes they can do so without a particularly powerful defense. Today we will be counting down the 10 Super Bowl champions with the worst defenses, and we will be doing that in the same manner we always do, by using C-Score, a metric created by this channel to properly evaluate every single team of the Super Bowl era rather than just looking at its record. C-Score is also broken down into offensive and defensive components, which of course is useful for this countdown. For a deeper explanation of how all this works, be sure to check out the description of this video. Please keep in mind this is not restricted to a team's Super Bowl performance or even its playoff performance. It takes into account the entire season. Thank you for joining us today. We are ready to go. Taking the 10th spot are the 1980 Oakland Raiders. At 11-5, the Raiders did not win the AFC West, but they managed their way to a Super Bowl title as a wild card. They were 10th best in points allowed, closer to the middle of the pack than the top, all against an above-average schedule. Their defensive C-score is 5.95. Oakland didn't have any terrible performances this season. They allowed 30-plus points just 3 times, one of those in overtime. They did force more turnovers than anyone else, but they did so in a classic bend but don't break fashion, finishing outside the top 10 in yards allowed and barely making the top 20 in passing yards allowed. They're a persistently above-average defense, bolstered by a good playoff performance, and that is perfectly reflected in their C-score. We stay in California for our number 9 entry, the 2021 Los Angeles Rams. The McVay Renaissance peaked this season, with the Rams going 12-5 and capturing their first Super Bowl in 22 years. They're right in the middle of the pack in points scored and strength of schedule, landing them a defensive C-score of 5.247. This is a slightly odd one. The Rams rostered 2 surefire Hall of Famers in Aaron Donald and Von Miller, and a potential Hall of Famer in Jalen Ramsey. But they can't do it all on their own, and they allowed at least 23 points, more than the league average, 9 times. They were 6th against the run, but only 22nd against the pass, with an overall ranking of 17th. But with that 22nd ranking against the pass came a second best mark in passing touchdowns allowed. Up next at number 8 are the 1968 New York Jets. An 11-3 record was more than good enough to win the weak AFL Eastern Division. Following that were upset wins over the Raiders and the Colts to win it all. They were 4th out of 10 in points allowed against a monumentally weak schedule. Their defensive C-score sits at 4.802. Okay, so maybe their schedule wasn't monumentally weak, but it was the AFL's easiest by virtue of that Eastern Division, which featured no other teams with a winning record. Sure, they wound up leading the AFL in total defense, but check out these splits. 324 yards per game allowed against 8 Eastern Division opponents, 409 yards per game allowed against 6 Western Division opponents. Of course, they saved their best for last in the Super Bowl, saving them from a spot in the top 5. From New York to New York, by way of New Jersey, of course. At number 7 are the 2007 New York Giants. Another wildcard team, the 10-6 Giants got it going at the exact right time to win it all. They only managed the 17th place finish in points allowed though, landing them a defensive C-score of 3.882. Sitting alongside their number 9 finish in the offensive category, the 07 Giants are the only squad to make a double appearance. Congratulations, I guess. They were excellent in the playoffs, of course, but their regular season cannot be ignored. They allowed over 30 points 5 times, albeit against a difficult schedule. They were right around 10th place in most other categories while not being especially great at turning teams over. So, above average, but nothing all that special. How crazy is it to see a Baltimore Ravens team on this kind of list? Well, here they are at number 6 with the 2012 squad. 10-6 won them an uncharacteristically weak AFC North, but like so many others on the list, they got hot at the right time to win the whole thing. They tied for 12th in fewest points allowed, giving them a defensive C-score of 3.782. For a franchise known for its great defenses, this was only their 19th best out of 30. Their only other winning season with a lower defensive C-score came in 2017, and just barely at that. They allowed at least 29 points 5 times in the regular season, then twice more in the playoffs. They were stingy in allowing passing touchdowns, but made up for it by finishing bottom 10 in allowing rushing touchdowns. They were in the bottom half of the league in rush yards, pass yards, and total yards allowed. We will once again stay in the same city, but go to a different franchise. At number 5 are the 1970 Baltimore Colts. Taking advantage of the new AFC, the Colts won the East at 11-2-1 and snuck out a Super Bowl victory. Their number 7 ranking in points allowed looks okay on the surface, but C-score tells the real story at 2.305. And why is that? Because their schedule was hilariously easy. It may have only been the second easiest in the league that season, but it was also the third easiest of the entire Super Bowl era. Yeah, the Dolphins had it even easier in what was a dilapidated AFC. Yet, Baltimore had enough top 10 finishes across various defensive categories, topping out at 3rd in passing yards allowed, and put together a strong enough playoff performance to keep their heads above water. We finally leave the coasts for our number 4 entry, the 2009 New Orleans Saints. They handled the NFL with a 13-3 record after a 13-0 start, winning the NFC South and snagging the franchise's only Super Bowl title. They only finished 20th in points allowed though, for a defensive C-score of 1.209. These guys won lots of shootouts. They allowed over 24 points 6 different times and went 6-0 in those games, playoffs included. They greatly resemble the 1980 Raiders from earlier in the countdown, finishing second in takeaways while generally leaking yardage, finishing outside the top 20 in all yardage categories. They allowed fewer points in other games, but the Super Bowl may have been their best day, holding down the powerful Colts offense while clinching the game on a pick 6. It's at number 3 where we now hit the negatives, but just barely. This spot belongs to the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs. The 14-3 AFC West champions led the league in scoring, but they were only 16th in points allowed, right at the middle of the league, for a defensive C-score of negative 0.203. Those points allowed may have been average, but their strength of schedule wasn't, sitting at the 5th easiest in the league. They allowed 27 points or more in 5 different regular season games, with the same number of games allowing fewer than 20. Their rushing numbers looked better, but on a play-by-play basis, they were better against the pass. They also hold the distinction of allowing the most points in a Super Bowl for the winning team. But hey, they were the winning team. Welcome back. Taking second place are the 2011 New York Giants. 9-7 with a negative point differential was able to win the NFC East, and in classic Giants fashion, they got hot for a month to win the Super Bowl. They faced a tough schedule, but they finished 25th in points allowed for a defensive C-score of negative 0.343. Allowing exactly 400 points over a 16-game regular season means the Giants allowed 25 points per game. Their opponents cleared the 30-point mark 4 times, with the Saints dropping a clean 49 on them. They just made it to the top 20 in rushing yards allowed at 19th, but they were 23rd in rush yards per attempt. Of course, they were much better in the playoffs, including a defensive shutout of the Atlanta Falcons. That and Jason Pierre-Paul saved them from an even worse fate. We've reached the number 1 spot, and that belongs to the 2006 Indianapolis Colts. The offense carried the way to a 12-4 record in an AFC South Division championship before capturing the Colts' first Super Bowl in Indianapolis. But take a look at that defensive C-score. It's negative 0.343, which is the exact same as the 2011 New York Giants. We needed to go deeper beyond the decimal point to find our winner, and here are those results. It's remarkable how close it was, but the Colts check out as slightly worse by about 7/10,000ths of a point. Indy was 10th worst in the league in points allowed, but that does get balanced out by playing the league's 4th hardest schedule. Of particular concern was their rush defense, allowing at least 100 yards in 16 out of 16 regular season games, including totals of 214, 219, 227, and 375. Then in the playoffs, they allowed 331 across all 4 games, with 3 under 100. This actually makes for a pretty simple analysis. Bob Sanders only played 4 regular season games, then he played all 4 playoff games. Looking at the top 10 as a whole, there's only about 6 points separating the top of this list from the bottom. There were some close spots here and there, but obviously nothing was closer than 1st and 2nd place, with the Colts just worse than the Giants. Not surprisingly, 8 out of these 10 teams performed better in the playoffs on a points per game basis, but the Chiefs and the Ravens actually dipped slightly. Their competition had something to do with that though. The other 8 teams improved by an average of 5.74 points per game, led by the 2011 Giants at 11 points per game. 3 different teams hit the negatives here as compared to just 1 with our corresponding list on offense. But these 3 teams' combined total does not even hit 1 full negative point. Thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up button and give it a few shares. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ding that bell to be notified every time we release something new. Let me know what you think about all of this. With such a close call within the top 3, did you have the right team at number 1? Was there a team in the top 10 you were surprised to see? Perhaps there was a team left out that you expected to be here. Sound off on these topics or anything else you may have on your mind right down there in the comments section. Thank you very much once again for joining us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.